You see,
I spent
I
40
never
years
really liked the ground.
living
The ground was
35,000
messy,
feet
it was loud,
above the
chaotic,
real world.
and unpredictable.
Now I sit
But
in
the
this
cockpit,
penthouse,
the cockpit was a
watching the city
sanctuary of
lights
perfect
like a
order.
runway.
I remember the specific click
I
of the
commanded the
switches,
largest
the
machines
smell
in
of
the sky,
recycled air and
yet
hot
I crashed
coffee,
my own
and the way
home.
the sun would hit the instrument panel
Let me
at
tell you
dawn, while the
how
rest
I
of the
traded
world
my
was
family
still sleeping
for a
in
view
the
of
dark.
clouds.
Up there, I was a god. I had a checklist for everything. If a warning light flashed, there was a procedure. If the weather turned, I had a vector. There was no problem in the sky that I couldn't solve with logic, training, and a calm voice over the intercom. I spent 4 decades chasing that feeling of smooth air. You know that sensation when the plane levels off, the seatbelt sign dings off, and the engines settle into a low, steady hum. That was the only peace I knew. I became addicted to the detachment. When you look down at a city from 6 miles up, you don't see the traffic, you don't see the arguments, and you don't see the tears. You just see a grid of lights. It's beautiful, but it isn't real. I built my entire identity around those 4 gold stripes on my shoulder. When I walked through the terminal, people parted ways. I was the captain. I carried that authority like a shield. I convinced myself that what I was doing was noble, connecting the world, moving commerce, transporting souls safely across oceans. And it was, in a technical sense. But the truth I didn't want to admit back then was that I used the uniform to hide. I used the schedule to escape. I bought this penthouse 5 years ago because it reminded me of the cockpit. Floor-to-ceiling glass, high above the noise, immaculate and white. I can stand here with my scotch and look down at the grid, just like I did from the left seat of a 747. It's quiet here. The air conditioning hums just like the avionics used to. But I am starting to realize that living above the world isn't the same as living in it. I spent my life avoiding the turbulence of human emotion, keeping everything steady and level. I thought I was being professional. I thought I was being strong. But I wasn't flying the plane. I was just running away from the ground. The tragedy of my marriage wasn't that we fought. It was that we didn't. We ran a perfectly efficient operation, just like an airline. I was the provider, the distant asset that brought in the resources. My wife was ground control. She managed the logistics, the schedules, the children, and the maintenance of our lives. When I came home from a 4-day trip to Hong Kong or London, I wasn't really coming home. I was just on a layover. I would walk through the front door with my roll-aboard suitcase, place my cap on the side table, and enter a house that had learned to function completely without me. My wife would give me a briefing. The boiler was fixed, our son had a soccer game, the taxes were paid. I would nod, say, "Roger that," and retreat to my study to decompress. I treated my family like passengers. As long as the flight was smooth and I paid the bills, I thought I was doing my job. We entered what I now call the roommate phase, about 15 years in. It wasn't sudden. It was a slow depressurization of the cabin. We stopped sleeping in the same bed because my sleep schedule was always erratic. I needed rest before the next trip. We stopped eating together because I was used to eating alone on a tray at 3:00 a.m. over the Atlantic. I remember sitting across from her at a restaurant for our 30th anniversary. The silence between us was heavier than gravity. I looked at her, this woman who had raised my children, and kept my world spinning, and I realized I didn't know her anymore. And worse, she didn't know me. She knew the pilot. She knew the man who paid for the house and the cars. But she didn't know the man behind the uniform because I never showed him to her. I kept the cockpit door locked. I told myself I was doing it for them. I'm working hard, I'd say. I'm securing our future. But deep down, I preferred the hotel rooms. I preferred the crisp, white sheets of a Marriott in Dubai, where no one asked me for anything, where no one needed emotional support, where I could just be silent. I treated my wife like a co-pilot I didn't particularly like, but had to work with. We stayed in our lanes. We followed the flight plan. And we never, ever deviated into the messy territory of intimacy. If my marriage was a hollow shell, my friendships were a mirage. When you wear the stripes, you are never lonely, but you are always alone. I spent thousands of nights in hotel bars across every continent. I was surrounded by first officers, flight engineers, and flight attendants. We were a crew. There is a seduction to that word. It implies a brotherhood, a bond forged in fire. We would sit in these dim bars in Tokyo or Frankfurt, loosening our ties, laughing about near misses, complaining about management, and swapping stories about crazy passengers. We drank expensive scotch and felt like kings of the world. I thought these men were my best friends. I thought we had a deep connection because we shared the same technical language. We knew what V1 meant. We knew the terror of a crosswind landing in a typhoon. But looking back from this silent room, I see it for what it was. It was proximity, not intimacy. We were friends by roster, not by choice. If the scheduling department hadn't put us on the same flight, we would never have spoken. We didn't know each other's fears. We didn't talk about our failing marriages or our estranged children. We talked about aerodynamics and seniority numbers. I remember when I was grounded for a medical issue for 6 months in my late 50s. The phone didn't ring, not once. All those men I had clinked glasses with, all those brothers I had flown through storms with, they were busy flying. I was off the roster, so I was off their radar. It hurt more than I expected. I realized then that I was interchangeable. I was just a rank and a seat number. I had betrayed the potential for real friendship for the ease of drinking buddies. Real friendship requires you to show your weakness, to admit when you are scared, to be vulnerable. But a captain is never vulnerable. A captain is always in charge. So I played the role. I bought the rounds. I told the stories. And I ensured that no one ever got close enough to see that the man flying the plane was lonely as hell. I traded deep roots for a wide wingspan, and when the engines finally stopped, I had nowhere to land. The end of my career didn't happen with a bang. There was no emergency landing, no fire on the wing, no heroic save. It ended with a calendar date. The Federal Aviation Administration has a mandatory retirement age. You hit 65 and you are done. It doesn't matter if your eyes are sharp or your hands are steady. The system says you are expired. I remember my final flight. It was a red-eye from Sao Paulo to New York. I greased the landing, barely felt the wheels touch the tarmac. I taxied to the gate, set the parking brake, and shut down the engines for the last time. There was a water cannon salute from the fire department on the taxiway, a polite applause from the passengers, and a handshake from the chief pilot. Then I walked out of the terminal, and just like that, I was a nobody. I was a civilian. I went home expecting to finally start that life I had been promising my wife for 30 years. I thought, now we can really be together. Now I can be the husband she wanted. But I had miscalculated the fuel. I had arrived at the destination only to find the airport had closed years ago. 3 months after I retired, my wife placed the divorce papers on the kitchen island. It wasn't an angry confrontation. There was no yelling. It was terrifyingly calm. She looked at me with a kindness that hurt more than hatred and said, "Elias, I've been alone for 40 years. I'm just making it official." She told me that she had built a life, a rich, full life, with friends, hobbies, and grandchildren, and I simply didn't fit into it. I was a stranger in my own house. I was like a piece of oversized luggage that she didn't know where to store. I signed the papers. I didn't fight. How could I? I had been absent. I had treated her like ground crew, essential for operations but not allowed in the cockpit. When she packed her bags, the silence she left behind was different from the silence in a hotel room. In a hotel, you know you're leaving in the morning. In that empty house, I knew I was staying. That was the first time I felt the true weight of gravity. The uniform was gone, the schedule was gone, and the woman who had anchored me to the earth was gone. I was permanently grounded, and I had no idea how to walk on solid ground. So, here I am. I sold the house, too many ghosts in the hallways, and I bought this penthouse. It is the architectural equivalent of a first-class cabin. Everything is white, beige, and chrome. The furniture is Italian leather. The kitchen is spotless because I rarely cook. I have a cleaning lady who comes twice a week to wipe away dust that hasn't even had time to settle. It is efficient, it is beautiful, and it is completely cold. I spend my days reading, watching the stock market, and looking out these massive windows. I tell myself this is what I wanted. I tell myself this is peace. I have mastered the art of solitude, or at least that's the lie I tell myself. I am the captain of this silent fortress. But lately, in the deep hours of the night, when the city lights flicker below like distant stars, I feel the difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is a choice. Loneliness is the invoice you pay for emotional negligence. I look at the blueprints of my life, trying to find the structural failure. I realized that I spent my entire existence focused on the destination, the next rank, the next pay, raise, the next aircraft rating, the retirement fund. I treated the present moment like transit time. I was always checking my watch, waiting for the next departure. But life isn't a flight plan. You can't program the autopilot and expect to arrive at a happy ending. Happiness is found in the turbulence, in the messy, inefficient, unscripted moments that I avoided like the plague. I have this view, yes, it is magnificent. But I have no one to point at the horizon and say, "Look at that." I have the finest scotch in the cabinet, but no glasses to clink against mine. I am like a black box recorder found in the wreckage. The data is all there, the career, the money, the accolades, but the voice recorder is just hours of silence. I traveled the entire world. I saw the pyramids, the Great Wall, the ice fields of Greenland, but I never built a home. A home isn't a place where you park your body. It's a place where you are known. And in this glass tower, surrounded by the sky I loved so much, I am entirely unknown. I keep a photo in my desk drawer. It's not of a plane. It's a picture of my son's 7th birthday. In the photo, he is blowing out the candles, and there is an empty chair at the head of the table. I wasn't there. I was in Frankfurt, sleeping off a long haul. I remember sending him a toy airplane and thinking that was enough. I thought my absence was a noble sacrifice for their comfort. I was wrong. That empty chair haunts me more than any near miss I ever had in the sky. You cannot fax a hug. You cannot wire transfer your presence. Children do not want your money. They want your eyes watching them. Wives do not want your paycheck. They want your hand holding theirs. I missed the moments that mattered, thinking I could catch up later. But time has no reverse thrust. You cannot back up the plane once you've taken off. If you are listening to me and you are still in the cockpit, if you are still chasing the next promotion, the next deal, the next stripe on your shoulder, listen to this old pilot. You need to land the plane. Do not wait for retirement to start living. Do not treat your family like passengers who are just along for the ride. Open the cockpit door. Let the turbulence in. Be present for the arguments, the messy dinners, the boring Tuesday nights. That is where life happens. It doesn't happen at 30,000 feet. Build a home, not just a house. A home is built with time, with attention, and with vulnerability. Put down the checklist. Turn off the autopilot. Look at the people who love you and realize that they are the only destination that matters. Don't end up like me, a man with a perfect view and an empty heart.
I conquered the sky, yet I failed to master the earth below me. The uniform commanded respect, but it could not command love or true connection. My logbook is full of journeys, yet I have nowhere left to go. Do not fly so high that you forget how to walk home.